Next Curve.
Hey everybody, welcome to this Next Curve reThink podcast episode of our Security and Trust series, where we break down the latest tech and industry events and happenings into the insights that matter in the very fast-moving landscape of cybersecurity and trust. And I'm Leonard Lee, executive analyst at Next Curve, and I'm joined by my co-host and very good friend, Debbie Reynolds of Debbie Reynolds Consulting LLC. Hey, Debbie.
Hey, Leonard. Nice to see you. Nice to see Bob. Awesome.
Good to see you. Yes. And speaking of Bob, our very special guest, Bob Carver, CEO of Cybersecurity Boardroom and cybersecurity thought leader extraordinaire, and quite present in and prolific and LinkedIn, sharing his insights. It's really great stuff. I love following your stuff, Bob, and it's really great to finally have you on our show. And I know Debbie's also equally probably as excited as I am to have this chat with you, and hopefully it'll be one of many in the future. So
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, great. So hey, before we get started, please remember to like and share, react to the comments in this episode and what we share here. Also, subscribe here on YouTube and Buzzsprout to listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Opinions and statements by my guest, and including my co-host Debbie, are their own and don't reflect those of Next Curve. And we are doing this to provide an open forum for discussion and debate on various technology topics and cybersecurity and trust topics. So we hope you find the program informative and fun. So before we get started, Bob, share with our audience a bit of your background and who you are, even though I think everyone in the cybersecurity domain knows who you are. But maybe expand your audience here by tapping into the Next Curve audience.
Yes. I've been doing cybersecurity for over the past 25 years. Originally was working in the financial world, and started in the 90s. One of my first projects was building a key management center, good old AES 256 encryption that ended up encrypting traffic that was it was moving money between Fidelity Investments and some major financial institutions, and I'm sure that system lasted probably many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars probably worth of transfers before it was retired. But anyway, I little by little, I started dabbling in security over at Fidelity Investments. Volunteered. There was very few back in the 90s and even the early 2000s of full-time security folks. So it was the IT guys that just volunteered to help out with the security. So that's what it started. And anyway, after I'd been there for a while, there was a position opened at Verizon Wireless. What happened is I say that I owed my career at Verizon Wireless due to the Paris Hilton hack. Her account got hacked at T-Mobile, and the management, in their own wisdom at Verizon Wireless, said, we may ought to hire some full-time people to do this security stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
And anyway, I was picked out of literally hundreds of people that they interviewed, and I ended up being employee number one to start things. They had some people that were contractors that started. But anyway, I've been doing this for, like I said, for some time, and went through a lot of major changes in technology over time, and just seeing all the craziness, and also not only in the defensive part, but to see the threat actors getting better and better. So that's the short bit. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic, and I'm sure our audience is going to appreciate the insights that you bring on both sides, right? What you're observing from the threat perspective, but also how you see solutions evolving, and we'll get into all of that as we have our discussion, right? So. But thanks for sharing that. We're really excited to have you on, as I said. So why don't we start off with a chat around what are some of the things that are top of mind in terms of threat trends. And it seems like, there are some that have been in play for quite some time, but then there also seems to be additional things being layered on top of the existing stuff, but then also new vectors and areas that are starting to form. And so, Debbie, I haven't spoken to you in a while, so love to get your take as well. But one of the things that I'm observing is the velocity is just accelerated. It seems to have, at least in the last 6 months. And just by looking at both of your posts and what you're sharing on social, it just looks like things are just picking up. And I don't think that's a good thing. But what are, I'm sure you have plenty of things to share, but what are some of those things that have been top of mind for you guys in the past, let's say, 6 months?
Well, ladies first, we're going to let Bob.
Oh,
Guess first, right?
Guess first. Yeah, I want Bob to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are so many things that just it is mind-boggling, the velocity that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, North Korea, they're probably the world experts on being able to break into cryptocurrency sellers and networks, and to be able to siphon off all those Bitcoin or whatever, or Ethereum recently too. As a matter of fact, I was I had just sold off the last of my cryptocurrency just a few months back before everything started going downhill, which I was glad to get out. But one of the concerns I had too was that the security. I mean, when things started happening in cryptocurrency, I didn't get in for the longest time because, like, how am I going to really be able to secure this well? Yeah. And so that I didn't get in for a long time. And then even then, I had a call from a friend of mine. They said, "Oh, I have this friend, and they just lost $300,000 worth of Bitcoin." And it was due to one of the major wallets that is very popular out there. And I don't know if they didn't keep up the updates or just continued to have one vulnerability after the next. And as a matter of fact, it was the same wallet that I was using. And anyway, just to see that sort of scary thing happening. But the other thing is to see a lot of the info stealer and just anyway, I was talking to you earlier, Leonard, and Debbie too, I think, about going to some of these LLM sites and some of my security stack showing up spyware and info stealer domains that somehow got into the mix, going to and from. And luckily I have some fairly decent security that ended up blocking these domains, or at least warning me of what was going on. Okay. And that's a concern too, of just because once an info stealer gets in your network or your computers, basically everything you log into, they have the username and password, and they can pretty much replicate what you've done. The only thing that might help is if you have good multi-factor authentication. But and I've known some people. I've recently did a little video last week, talked about like small businesses getting compromised and stuff. And these businesses, like the info stealer gets in there, they could lose their entire business. All their banking accounts, all their email, it's all under control. Their phone may be under control, and it's it's scary.
So can we back up for a moment,
please?
What is an info stealer? I mean, I think quite honestly, it's a bit of a new term for me.
Sure,
but I mean, what is it?
Info stealer basically sniffs out all your logins and all your login. At least that's the primary result of it. So all your logins, your username and passwords. So and they'll also check, to see, oh, is this your bank domain? Is this your email domain? This is, your password domain, if you have a password manager, that sort of thing. And they'll grab all that information that is used to be able to take over your account.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at you, Debbie. You look pained. What is? You've been holding a grimace this whole time as Bob is describing an info stealer.
It's scary.
Are you okay?
No, yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah,
terrible. Yeah, there was actually a story about this in the news. You may have written about the guy. I think he worked for Walt Disney.
Oh yeah.
And they had I guess I'm not sure if it was an info stealer, but somehow a bad actor was able to take over his password manager.
Yeah.
And his password manager had his personal stuff and his work stuff in it.
Right.
So they were able to get into his Disney accounts and do stuff. And then he ended up getting fired, and they stole like a lot of money from his bank accounts or whatever.
He's trying to get his job back now. But what happened is he thought he'd be smart and download LLM, I think, on his local machine. And I think I'm pretty sure he got it from GitHub. And after he downloaded that and installed it, that's when things started going bad. And evidently there was some sort of info stealer type code in that LLM he downloaded locally. And his endpoint security did not pick that up.
Yeah.
And it not only took out his entire everything that he was associated with, but the threat actors that did take over his machine made it look like he had been stashing some child porn. So it would be a high probability that he would be fired, that the FBI would get involved, on and on and on. Okay. And then, but the thing is that I think they got into other parts of Disney too, based on his access that he had at Disney at the time. So wow. It's very, nice. Very, very scary. So that's why when I hear about the spyware and info stealer malware, it's scary.
Yeah. And this is something that we talked earlier about RSA RSAC, or the RSA conference. That the conference started to become very concerned about last year. And because the prior year everybody was high on generative AI. They were excited about its potential to be a tool to help combat the existing problems with cybersecurity and threats. And then that tone quickly changed last year, right? And what you guys are describing here in this scenario with Disney is exactly what they were concerned about. I think they saw the writing on the wall. A lot of practitioners and vendors actually saw the writing on the wall and said, this stuff is, if it gets into our networks, into our our corporate environments, it can go exponential, right? Yeah. It's actually a tool that can accelerate an attack beyond anything that, let's say, a Gen AI enabled intruder could and attacker could institute in our environment and ultimately on our business, right? So it's really interesting that you're bringing that up, because it seems that a year ago that tone change was completely appropriate, and it's kind of a unfortunate thing.
I think to emphasize something here, important point of this, one of the reasons he was putting the LLM, downloading it and installing it locally, was due to some privacy concerns of being, putting prompts and, all their information into the one that's out in the cloud.
Yeah.
So they were trying to protect, he's from a privacy standpoint, he was going the right direction. But the thing is
It backfired.
Yeah, it sort of backfired.
Yeah.
End up exposing more things in the long run by going locally than they would have stayed in the cloud. But anyway, it's definitely. But the thing is like sort of implying what you were talking to Leonard there, is that individual AI agents could be rolled up into these systems.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they could be used. It's almost like being like going down a bad alley and then getting attacked by an entire gang.
Yeah.
Just all by yourself, Yeah. If all those AI agents were defined to do bad, well, they would tear you apart.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Agentic AI is something that's been more of a recent trend and pivot in the generative AI narrative. But last year, it was brought up as being a potential vehicle for threat expansion, attack expansion, everything along the lines of what you're talking about right now. So I think, the community outside of cybersecurity is about a year and a half behind the cybersecurity industry that's looking at what the potential is for these technologies to actually, it's already been a asymmetric, like Debbie, you always talk about how the relationship or the fight is asymmetrical, right? It increases that asymmetry, but in the favor, not of the cybersecurity practitioner, actually the attacker. Right. And so that's the dilemma. But
sure. One thing that's interesting, I had the opportunity to speak at several conferences way back in 2018 and 2019. I was at an all EU conference in Dublin, Ireland. And that was the first time. I had always had this in the back of my head, but to publicly, not just my close network, but publicly say to several thousand people, get ready. The fight in cybersecurity is going to be AI versus AI. It's just a matter of time. This was 2018. It was the first time I said that publicly. Then I brought that same message to the International Monetary Fund twice. In 2019, one time in front of 190 countries, and the other time was a little bit smaller, but still countries from all over the world. And anyway, it's just people were sort of deer in headlights. I don't think they knew exactly that the audience in the EU was all definitely cyber folks. The IMF is more monetary folks, bankers, economists, that sort of thing. And anyway, a little bit deer in headlights there, but
yeah.
And so now we're actually seeing a result of this happening, and this agentic AI that could end up being, the attacker. It's I liken it too much to like the swarm attack drones in the air, where you're busy trying to fight off each one on an individual basis, but it's difficult to fight them every single one off at the same time.
Right.
That's the type of, if you have a visual reference, I would say, those attack swarm drones, it would be very much like that in a cyber realm.
Well, it's like the Matrix with Neo fighting what's the guy's name? Agent.
Yeah.
The agent. That's what it's like. Yeah. I agree with you. I was going to say AI agents or just AI in general and how people are using it for attacks, right? I'm super concerned because these agents would reportedly know more about you than maybe a typical person would know, or would typically be known about you in public. And so that's enough to create a situation where they can maybe send an email or do something on your behalf and fool someone to give them some information or something like that. And so,
Sure.
and when we're thinking about agents, think about agents, right? With an S,
Yeah.
multiple. So like
Right.
they may have 100 agents, and then there's
Yeah.
no guarantee that even the
And
ones that you sanction will not go rogue, right?
right.
They have your, like Leonard, they may have your flight information or your bank information, and they're only supposed to, book flights for you, but who's to say they want to book flights for somebody else?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I want to
I'm a
share.
little concerned.
Yeah, I mean, Debbie, you and I, we've had discussions about deepfakes for actually years now. It's
Yeah.
incredible, years. But I was just at the NAB show, and I kind of did a no-no. I actually consented to have my image used in a demo, and the demo, after about a minute, pumped back an advertisement that had my likeness in the ad.
Whoa. Yeah.
And I was astonished. Number one, how quickly they're able to replicate or create that deep fake. Although, obviously they were the vendor was thinking, hey, we're doing this for fun. This is something that fans might engage with, or a creator, if they licensed someone's likeness, they could create content using generative techniques without having to bring that individual into the studio, et cetera, right? But you flip that, and it's astonishing how these deep fakes could very easily, fool most people.
Yeah.
Right. And our voices, our likeness, they're on the internet. And then there's also the dark web that is open. Right. And so when you have these agents and these, generative AI architectures, what you might call RAG architectures for cyber attacks, basically, connecting to an indexing or creating embeddings of you in let's say a vector or a graph database, and then using that information or that corpus to institute intelligent or reasoned attacks on you with deep fakes, a deep fake layer, super scary. And it's not like this is tomorrow. This is like today.
Yeah.
This is maybe even yesterday. And I don't think this is part of the public discourse enough.
Right.
It's actually quite frightening.
There's several things there. I mean, one of the things that's a little concerning is that there are many financial institutions started doing the voice recognition as part of the identity. And it's like when that first came out, I go, oh boy, I don't know about this. But anyway. So, but we'll go back, and about a year ago, I think in Hong Kong, there was a company taken for over $200,000 through a deepfake, and it was done with a video and that sort of thing. And then the most recent one you probably remember was Ferrari. Somebody was trying to imitate the CEO of Ferrari, and he was trying to pull and get some major money from Ferrari.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Interesting. It started out with using a phone number with WhatsApp that they didn't recognize, but they had his picture with the Ferrari logo and a picture and that sort of thing. And then, but also they had some sort of voice changing technology that was able to imitate his, I think it was Southern Italian accent. It was the same accent that he had, very similar to his voice. And they were luckily one of the upper management that was going to eventually have to approve this money transfer. He said, I'm going to have you prove exactly who you are here, right? Because you're calling from a different number. I'm not familiar with that sort of thing. And there were several things that didn't quite add up. And he said, we had a conversation, you and I, last week, and you recommended a book for me to read.
Oh,
what was the title of that book? And at that time, when that happened, all of a sudden the line went dead.
Oh,
the actor, the guy, the bad guy, hung up. He'd been had there. He couldn't fool him anymore. But he fooled them all up to this point, though.
Yeah,
it was like, I think they had gone on for an hour back and forth with multiple people in the organization. And
that's true.
They had everybody fooled, but then anyway, like I said, when it went to a personal conversation that was happening the week before, the guy couldn't replicate that. And anyway, was able to. So it just shows that companies, companies and even families need to have some way of authenticating people beyond the normal means, beyond a normal voice and normal video.
That's just, and it is ironic that the mechanism for doing that is the most archaic thing that you can think of. It's the most non-digital thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really depressing. So anyway, Debbie, do you have anything?
Go ahead.
You have another depressing thing to share with our audience?
Oh, I'm sure I have lots of depressing things. Unfortunately, matter of fact, I am called out regularly on LinkedIn. It's like, can't you share some good news for a change?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's several people that. One in particular, but I won't mention their name. But
well, no, you know what? For those people, I think if you have a solution, it's a great opportunity for you to say that you have a solution.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I tell a lot of folks, because our biggest challenge right now is lack of awareness and hyperbole, right? Yeah. A lot of folks thinking that certain technologies are something beyond what they actually are. Mm-hmm. And then the other is certain technology topics or issues or risks that are just simply not known. And so for enterprise practitioners, but also increasingly for consumers, it's important to, number one, have that awareness of some of these issues that we're already talking about here. But then number two, to also not hyperbolize certain types of technologies that simply are not going to deliver on exaggerated expectations, right? None of those, I think, things are good. So, I mean, even for this podcast, we invite anyone, if you have a solution, it's not like we know everything.
No.
If you have a solution, give us a call or share, and then we'll kick the tires on it. You know? And then if it's great stuff, I think we'd be more than happy to share the story of a solution, right? Which we'll get into in a little bit, so that Debbie's not has that sourpuss face on her.
Yeah, Debbie, I don't want
through the whole episode because she's hearing all this disturbing stuff.
Anyway, I think the main thing is just to get the word out so people have awareness to be able to protect themselves. That's the main thing.
Yeah, Debbie, any other depressing cybersecurity topics you want?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I will say though, the thing I always tell people, the three things I always note in these situations is almost like, and I'm dating myself, and I'm sure Bob, you know this from back in the day. But remember Saturday Night Live when they had that skit where it was someone at the door and they like say Candygram or something. There's always like a shark, right?
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. So that's
unfortunately that's I don't know if Leonard remembers that, but maybe he saw some reruns. But
that's what it reminds me of. So no matter how people try to get to you, they're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So they want to create a disturbing situation, make you do something that you wouldn't typically do. Yes. They create a sense of urgency and they want you to take an action.
Yeah.
So if you don't do any of those things, that'll help you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all have to sort of slow down and listen and try to make sense of whatever is going on. And you're right, that sense of urgency a lot of times is used by different threat actors and scammers to try to get people to do something really quick. And you might be better off just to think about it for a while. Put it off later.
Yeah, but it's so urgent. I just don't do anything. So I was like, okay, well, what's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, geez. Okay, so now let's move on to the bright side of life.
Okay. I hope.
Something for us. This should be okay. So it looks like some people have reacted to your post, Bob.
Yeah.
And let's talk about like solutions. I mean, the bright side of life, and hopefully the other side of the asymmetrical equation here. But what are some of those things that you see emerging or in play right now that look like they could be viable solutions, either for enterprises or consumers? Because again, I agree with you. Consumers is increasingly important because now they're becoming a threat. They're becoming a vulnerability to businesses because their vulnerabilities could then be a way for a threat actor to actually compromise a business as well as their customers. So what are some of those things that you see that are promising in terms of solution?
Sure. Let me back up a little bit. Yeah. I did post something. I mean, this is sort of the good and the bad, but there was an article I found that talked about a lot of the common VPN solutions for consumers they were sending off a lot of their data to advertising agencies. And so they were like, not only, basically they implied that they were supposed to help with privacy and that sort of thing. But then yet they were sucking down all your data from your web history and sending it off to these ad agency type groups. And some of the common names, some of them were like NordVPN. For a while, ExpressVPN was doing it, but they finally are backing off, I think, because consumers, discovering this. But there was a lot of these named. But it also gave, that same article that I had posted, gave a lot of the companies that supposedly did not do any of that type of thing. So it was good knowledge just for the general public on, to know which VPN to buy. Now, I don't think VPNs are the ultimate solution for security and may even be sometimes questionable even on the privacy end, although they're advertised to be that way a lot. One of the advisory boards I'm working on now, they've developed a hardware micro-segmentation platform. And
wow.
Yeah, and I don't know the pricing, how solid it is, and I think they're doing it more for medium to large size businesses right now. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be a huge cost, like a small little gateway. And what it is, it almost acts like a VPN because what happens is the gate you can't. You're hidden behind this micro-segmentation or sort of like a firewall type thing behind the gateway. But this gateway, you can't discover this gateway with the normal pen testing methods. There's nothing there. Or at the worst case, it's this, there was something there, but it's not alive.
Like so obscurity?
You mean can't do it. Yeah. Okay. Obscurity, yeah. Security by
obscurity, yeah, which is
exactly.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. So people can't get to you. Yeah. And then they take that you log in through there, and then it also logs you into a cloud instance, which is almost sort of like a similar to a SASE type situation, but you can set it up to protect you, where you allow only certain users, only certain ports, only certain IPs, and you can even do geolocation blocking. on and on and on. And this and nobody can see your traffic except for the people that actually run this, and they don't ever, I think the traffic just overwrites itself after a certain amount of time. So that's something that I find very interesting, and it'd be interesting to see if they get this available eventually to consumers. But right now, I think that, like I said, they're going to do it from medium to large organizations. They have it for individual endpoint, where you can do either Wi-Fi or Ethernet, or you can set up a gateway to make your own little mini network. Or now they're going to a full-blown switch where the whole switch can be set up with all of these micro segments, and you can totally set up the configurations to totally control all the traffic going in and out and from one to another. So considering a lot of companies have a certain amount of crown jewels they want to protect.
Yeah.
This is it's been certified at FIPS 140-2, I guess it is. So that means pretty much that most pen test guys aren't able to break into it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's going to be good for. I think it's going to be good for IoT. I think it's going to be good for OT, and it's going to be good for like a lot of manufacturing that are stuck on Windows XP platforms that are, full of holes. So I think it's going to be an exciting thing. And also, like I said, if they eventually, like I said, I don't know if they're going to do consumers right now. I think it's more going to be mid to large commercial enterprises.
Yeah.
But considering, if somebody gets a hold of a system and they have admin privileges, they escalate to admin privileges. The micro-segmentation that's built into an OS, it's toast. It's done. It's the same thing with, how the threat actors take down endpoint security. So they take down the endpoint security, they take down the micro-segmentation. It's like game over. You're toast. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about this.
I think it's totally cool. Actually, in the study I did for Ofcoms, now going on almost 7 years ago, we brought up micro-segmentation and this is in a telco context. For that, for MEC, that being like a big missing piece. But I like this notion of bringing it to consumers because we have like a crap ton of stuff like connected to our network. Imagine being able to bring zero trust capabilities to a household. And not just within the home, extending that sort of a consumer SASE model, if you will. That's super interesting.
I have one in my home network. So
I'm sure Bill Pugh does as well.
Probably so. But anyway, I
love that idea.
It's exciting, and I can see some great things. And I remember meeting somebody at Black Hat years ago.
Hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
Debbie, smile. This is good stuff. She still has that depressed look on her face.
It's all good.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I met somebody at Black Hat years ago, and he had set up his own VPN. And what he did is he set up a cloud instance, and had the micro-segmentation and everything. And he put everybody's traffic through a big mixer, in this cloud. So even if somebody could get into that cloud instance, they wouldn't be able to tell whose was what, or anyway. But this is sort of the same sort of thing, same sort of principle, where this is going to connect this device, hardened hardware device, or micro-segmentation connects to cloud instance, and the cloud instances reroute you to other parts of wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I'm much in favor of sharing less, so that helps less data or information go out. I'm all in favor.
Yeah, and so nobody really can get to my computer when I'm connected to that. So,
well, I don't think we would expect anything less from you, Bob. So
yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
so that's good. Of course, another thing that was in the news recently was a lot of these Android applications that were again sharing data with all these data entities, advertising entities, whatever, just sucking down and not being 100%, revealing in what they're doing with all the data, transparent with all their data that they're grabbing off of your phone. But it can be happen on any phone. I mean, the same thing happened with iPhone, and even there's times you've probably seen you can't always change the settings where it's like, no, I don't want to share my data with you.
Yeah.
It's not
you
always
can opt out. Yeah.
It's not always available to opt out. So
yeah. But it's interesting that a lot of these examples you're bringing up, privacy is such a big factor. I mean, and the reason why I say that is because you've brought up sort of this the issue with the freemium ad model and kind of the business model that it is, and that unfair trade that Debbie always talks about, right?
Yeah.
And the risks that imposes or creates for not only the consumer or your customer, but for the enterprise itself, ultimately.
Right.
And it's like there's the whole chain of risk. Everyone talks about chain of thought. Maybe we coin a new term here, is the chain of risk.
Yeah.
Right? It's just no single instance of vulnerability or compromise. It tells the whole story. It's that whole cascading effect all the way to, the enterprise, the service provider that you have to consider. So it's just something that I just kind of noticed from our conversation.
Yeah. One of the things that I do, and I recommend a lot of people to do this, and people can do this themselves fairly easily by a couple of plugins. And I generally don't recommend doing plugins on browsers, but uBlock Origin, and the other one is Privacy Badger, which is from EFF. Those two, and Debbie probably she knows of those and maybe even uses them, but they block a lot of the advertising and tracking. But I also do it on a domain basis.
Oh, did we just lose him? Oh,
on a domain basis through DNS.
Oh, okay.
Blocking all these ads and tracking. It's usually at the very minimum 10% of all the traffic that goes to and from my computers are either ads or tracking. 10% that's on the low end. It's probably been as high as 12 or 13% of the traffic. So that's how much of this stuff is going on, and it's sort of scary. But I mean,
Bob, how are you such a popular person? This is like so stressful.
I don't think
I'm stressed out listening to you, man. This is like crazy.
The advertising people aren't very happy with me saying anything like this, but
I don't think they're happy with any of us right now.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
You have to eat your vegetables and take the medicine, I guess.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
But anyway, it does break some websites, unfortunately. But I just have to weigh how bad I want to go to some of those websites.
Yeah. Well, that's why the work that Debbie's doing at IEEE and and trying to establish a standard for privacy or transparency around privacy and privacy practices, like what Debbie and I call like the privacy first principles of just anything, right? Of like business or economy.
Sure.
That's why that's so important. But again, I think we suffer the problem with folks not having the awareness of the risks and the issues related to just trading your privacy for free stuff. there's a very wide and deepening ocean that needs to be transfers, because the at risk of all of this is trust at the end of the day. Because going back to the beginning of our conversation, the tools that the threat actors are now equipped with asymmetrically enable them to do exponential damage, right? I mean, when they talk about the exponential benefit of AI, it really applies to them today at a scale much greater than anything that cybersecurity practitioners can institute to countervail that growing.
And I know Debbie's talked about these before in the past. I mean, the automobile market and any more recent automobiles, the amount of data is just incredible that they suck down off your system. The only thing that very frustrates me is you have no way to mitigate that easily. They don't, where on my home network, anything that goes through my home network, I can take care of a lot of that myself with settings.
Yeah, but you're Bob.
Roku example. I have a Roku box that I bought several years ago for my old TV. But anyway, just looking at my logs on the DNS logs, one of the Roku domains is one of the top blocked domains out of thousands of domains. It's just a big chatterbox. It is just constantly sending information out to the internet and to the people, to feed on this stuff. But they must be a little bit disappointed because I have thousands and thousands of blocks as they keep on retrying. And we want this information. It's like, no, you don't get it.
Okay, Bob. I think we're gonna have to cut you off because you're making, Debbie's smiling for just a moment when we actually remind her that she's grimacing, and then she goes straight back to grimacing. So this is like not a healthy thing that we have going on here. So let's do this. Since we're already up on time here. Both you, Debbie, and Bob, share some of your perspective on what you think enterprises need to do in terms of mindset shift going into this year. Obviously, Bob, this is your first time on, so really interested in your thoughts there. Right. But Debbie's constantly tuned into the vibe of what's going on with enterprises and privacy. And I think it's all becoming so interrelated. This is like what Debbie and I have been talking about for years now. This isn't yesterday's thing. This is what we've been talking for a long time. Trust, privacy, and security are all coming together. They're different. And that's like the first order of awareness that needs to be bridged. But when they come together, you need to start to understand how they're interrelated and how they're all coming together because of actually the morphing nature and evolving nature of cybersecurity threats, right? But what is that mindset shift that you would say that enterprises need to make going forward into this year? So both of you, please share your thoughts.
You want to go, Debbie, first, or?
Oh, sure. I'll go first. Well, two things. One is that I think companies need to educate employees, and not just about company stuff, but about personal stuff, right? So protecting themselves in the digital realm, because even in this Disney example, right? So this guy's probably using his home stuff, you know what I mean? Like maybe he understood what he's supposed to do at work and he did all that stuff, but there were some gaps there between what he was doing that maybe could have helped him and, not hurt his work. Because we see people, for example, they can't print at work, so they send a document to their home email address, so I mean, the shenanigans kind of goes on and on. So being able to educate people about just cyber safety or digital safety as a whole, not just at work, I think is, that bridge that gap. And then also companies need to talk about future risks, right? Emerging risks, talking about this agentic stuff. So can't just be like, oh my God, this terrible thing happened. Johnny got hit by a car last week. You have to talk more about, these are things that are out there now.
Yeah.
These are things that are emerging. Here are the possibility of things that can happen if we don't do X, Y, and Z. So it can't just be reactive. It has to be more proactive. And we have to have more imagination and explain to people what these future risks could look like.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So bring it back to the real world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is to be able to expand their understanding of the breadth and depth of the risks that are going on.
Yeah.
And the next step as part of that is to be able to have the visibility and context into the network to be able to understand of some of these threats that could be going on in the network. So many of these threats nowadays use a combination of maybe traditional malware, but they're also living off the land, where they use traditional processes that, whether on a Windows or a Linux box, and they just use those traditional commands. And of course, the endpoint security and the network security don't see those as being a threat, because it's like, oh, those are the commands that the everyday sysadmin uses anyway. So it's not a problem. So they do need additional visibility into those type of processes. I think we need more micro-segmentation. I think this micro-segmentation that's done in a hardware probably could be a boon for a lot of companies, whether it's IT, OT, IoT, or actually, I'm sure there's ways you could figure out how to even do that in the cloud if you did it right. So I can see that sort of thing. The other thing is that the going to the next level of machine learning and neural networks to be able to make understanding of what's going on all those endpoints and what's going on the network flows, whether it's to and from the internet or east-west, a lateral movement in those networks, to be able to help understand what's going on. So those are a lot of the basics that I'm concerned about.
Yeah. Well, I'll add one additional thing, and this has something to do with the title of your company, actually. It's addressing board pressure on emerging technologies, whether it's generative AI or agentic AI, especially agentic AI now, because I think now there's this huge deluge of agentic AI Kool-Aid being pumped into the techno-verse, right?
Right.
That needs to be addressed. And no doubt, the kind of board pressure that you always hear practitioners talk about, that needs to be addressed. And part of that is getting experts like Debbie, yourself, Bob, and I'll include myself.
There you go.
Any of us.
As you should.
Right.
Yeah. To help alleviate that pressure. And it's incumbent on it's a fiduciary duty of a board member to know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to these things, because it's so serious. And to check any expectations that are being built on the hype side of emerging technologies against the cybersecurity realities and the threats and risks that they not only potentially, present, but do present, because usually the threats are ahead of the actual business value in any of these technologies that we've already discussed. So, that's the only thing that I would add. And so with that, hey, great discussion. So, smile, Debbie, please. She usually smiles, Bob. Don't get the wrong impression.
I've seen Debbie smile before. I know she smiles.
Bob knows I smile. Bob knows I smile.
I probably was just being a downer.
No.
Okay, that's okay. It's all good.
I got a glare in my eyes, so I'm more squinting. So
Okay, all right. Good one. That was a nice pivot there, Debbie. But hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you found the discussion insightful and helpful. And Bob, Debbie, thanks a lot for jumping on. Love doing this with you guys. And Bob, hope to have you on again. And so really quickly, why don't you explain to our audience how they can get in touch with you? I know that you've started your own thing, so share with our audience.
Yeah, my main platform is LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on X, Twitter too, but LinkedIn is my main focus. And just look for me. I mean, if you just do DuckDuckGo or Google, Bob Carver Cybersecurity, the LinkedIn link comes up right away. So I'm on the first several pages of all the search engines. So LinkedIn puts me out there.
Oh yeah. Cybersecurity Boardroom, folks. And then Debbie, how about you really quickly share with our audience how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can always type in Debbie Reynolds Data Diva on LinkedIn and my name will pop up. You can also go to my website, DebbieReynoldsConsulting.com. I have a lot of videos and other stuff that people can take a look at. So actually, we were talking about boards. I did a speaking engagement last week for the National Association of Corporate Boards. And it was really interesting because we ended up doing a AWS hosted like a tabletop thing with boards, and we were talking about implementing this new AI, and it was pretty cool. But it was funny because I was like trying to tell people, like, you have to, before you go into this AI stuff, you have to think about the privacy stuff first. And a lot of people just didn't want to do that, and so we kind of lost points for not forgetting it the wrong way. So think about the privacy stuff first. Call me if you need me with this help. I think it'd be great.
Love that.
Us down, Debbie. You're slowing us down.
Yeah. You know, there's nothing sustainable about dangerous or poorly executed innovation. Innovation it needs to be safe. I think people need to be conscious of that. No, going back to what you were mentioning before, Bob, about the early days of online banking and financial, a lot of people weren't thinking about security back then. Some of it was quite rudimentary, and then look at how it has had to evolve, right? How it's had to evolve, and it's pretty remarkable where we needed to go. So with that, please subscribe to our podcast, which will be featured on the Next Curve YouTube channel, and check out the audio version on Buzzsprout. Or find us on your favorite podcast platform. Also subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next-curve.com for the tech and industry insights that matter. And we will see you next time. Again, Bob, thanks for jumping on. Debbie, always a pleasure. All right, take care.